Hi everyone, welcome to my very first episode of The Clock with Jana, where we have real conversations with real professionals who are making an impact in their industry. I'm your host, Jana Zelikson, and today we're kicking things off with someone I work very closely and really admire, my boss, Mark Goldwich. And he is founder of Gold Star Adjusters, successful public adjusting firm that's been helping people navigate insurance claims the right way. Mark built successful public adjusting firm from the ground and up, and today we are diving in how he got started, the challenges he faced, and all that. So let's get into it. Mark, how you doing, Mark?
Good, Donna. How are you?
Good, thank you. So tell us about yourself. What led you to actually start the public adjusting firm?
Well, it starts before. So I actually went to college and got a degree in insurance. My father was an insurance agent. And so it was something that I knew a little bit about. And I didn't really have a clear path. So I just went with insurance because it was familiar to me. After college, I got into claims with a very large national insurance company. If at the time, if you lived on a cul-de-sac of just 3 people, chances are one of the other 2 was going to be a good neighbor of yours, right? And that's the insurance company. So I worked with them for about 17 years. And along the way, they changed how they did things, and management changed. And, if you don't get along with management, you're not enjoying your job. It makes things very difficult. So I had started thinking about becoming a public adjuster when things started getting difficult at my job. And in 2004, after 4 hurricanes hit the state of Florida in one hurricane season, I saw that as a sign that I couldn't refuse anymore. And I made the change and I became a public adjuster.
That's very, very inspiring. Can I ask you, what did you do before? Well, before completely the public adjuster, like what was your professions, all that all together, like
really my only profession before public adjusting was as a claim manager at this large insurance company. So I've been in property insurance claims my whole adult career, now 38 years of adjusting insurance claims. So I was doing most of the same things that I was doing as a public adjuster. I was just on the insurance company side, and I did a lot of catastrophe work. And so I traveled all over the country with a team of adjusters, and sometimes picked up independent adjusters to join our team along the way, and settled, just millions of insurance claims throughout the years.
That's a very, very inspiring, and it's a good thing that you had already a lot of experience. Like, for example, as you know, I had to start from scratch. It was very difficult. It still is sometimes. So that's a good thing. Was there a specific moment or experience that pushed you to start like your own business, like certain maybe? Well, besides obviously hurricane and all that, but was there like any situation or anything like that?
No, but it's interesting. I never really thought of it as starting my own business. I was just leaving the job that I was unhappy in and going to do this new job that I hope to be happy in. I knew how to adjust claims. I didn't really know anything else, how to do anything else. That was my skill, was adjusting insurance claims. So I was doing the exact same job, but I was doing it for myself and for my clients, the policyholders. And it made a world of difference. Instead of, working for a corporation that did not appreciate me, I got to work for people that did appreciate me.
Absolutely. I get that so much. I think it's always good to work for yourself. It's always hard to start in the beginning, but it's better definitely to work than to work for somebody else. What was the early days like at that time when you launched your firm comparing to today?
Okay, so for the first 2 years to 3 years, it was just busy, right? In 2004, we had the hurricanes hit Florida. So I was really busy. I live in Jacksonville. Claims that I was handling were in Pensacola, and Pensacola Beach is about 5.5 hours drive. So I would drive from here to there, stay a few days, adjust claims, inspect, take pictures, measurements, all of these things. And then I would drive 5.5 hours back a few days later to Jacksonville, where I would write estimates, make phone calls, set up inspection appointments, and those kind of things. And so the first 2, 3 years went by really quickly because after '04, we had '05. And in '05, there was Wilma and Katrina both hit South Florida. So now I'm going back, and I'm originally from South Florida. So now I'm going back home, and I'm handling claims, again, 5.5 hours to the south, while I'm still handling some claims 5.5 hours to the northwest. And so a lot of traveling, a lot of miles on the vehicle, and very hectic for like 3 years. And the money was good because the claims were large, hurricane claims, and it's before the 10% fee cap that we now have, but I was still only charging 10% back then anyway.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
still large claims, so I made more in my first year on my own than in my 17th year with this large insurance company. And in my second year, I made almost twice that much. So the
Nice.
first couple of years were really good. But
Mhm.
after those claims died down in about 2007, I come back to Jacksonville. There's no more claims in either of these other cities. And now I have to find my own work in a town that doesn't know what a public adjuster is, that has no experience with natural disasters, no large scale claims, and it got very difficult for a few years. It got very lean for a few years, but pushed through, was able to survive those few bad years, I would say, and it just got progressively better since then.
So I was actually gonna ask you if you felt like giving up at one moment. If so, what kept you going? And of course, after that, if you can tell me in those moments, especially when it was a slow season, how did you manage to get the clients?
Well, I don't really know what it's like to give up. Not one to give up easily. So that
Great.
wasn't really an option for me. I had determined I was going to do this and I was going to find a way to make it work. Now, I had to go through some mutual fund money, some savings that I had set up along my years with the company, with the insurance company, and the years, my first couple of years where I did well with the hurricanes, and that helped get me through financially. But I was always determined that I was going to be able to make it work. I did a lot of networking. I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I would go to any little networking event in town that I could find, and I would just meet people, talk to people. Most of them had never heard of a public adjuster, had no idea what we did, but thought it was a wonderful idea. And the most common response was, I wish I knew about this last year because I had such and such happen to me, or my parents had such and such happen. I wish I knew about this last year. And fortunately, back then, the response is, it's not too late. And it wasn't, because back then we had 5 years to file to file an insurance claim or file suit
Wow,
on an insurance claim. The
that's a
statute
long time. Yeah,
was
for the people who doesn't know, today it's 1 year actually, and you can reopen within year and a half, right?
right, right.
Yeah,
Big,
wow, that's a big difference.
yeah. And so I would say it's not too late. They would say, well, of course, the claim has been settled for a year.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Let me take a look at it. I don't charge you anything to take a look at it. As a matter of fact, even if I take on the case, I don't charge anything unless I recover and the money is sitting there on the table. Then I get my little piece and you get the big piece. And they would go, really? We can do that? And so we would do that, and they would get their money and I would get my money and everybody's happy. And now I had one other person who knew what it was that I was doing, and they could tell other people. And it just went like that year after year till enough people knew that they would start calling the office, which really at that time it was my cell phone. I didn't have an office back then. So more and more people would call me, and it got to be to the point where more people would call me than what I could really handle. I could only handle so many people a year by myself. And then I started bringing on other people to help me. So now, instead of me helping 40 people a year, my firm, well, one, I could help other people join this wonderful industry. And over the decades, I've put on over 25 adjusters, brought in over 25 adjusters into the industry. So I help them by bringing them into this industry, and then they help all these other people that I never would have been able to touch. I never would have been able to help them. And now we can help hundreds, over 400 people a year that we could help that I would never be able to help on my own.
Yeah, it's amazing how a lot of owners, they don't even know how this whole thing works, how they can get paid for the damages. We will get to it a little later, but definitely very good point. I would like to talk about it. What do you think about Chamber of Commerce? Because I hear different opinions on that one. Do you think it really helps businesses to grow?
It does help a lot of businesses to grow. It didn't help my business to grow very much, but I met a lot of great people. I met people who are influential in the community, people who are good to know, right? And eventually something's going to happen, because we have to keep in mind, if I go to a room in the chamber and there's 100 people in the room, which is a good sized group of people, chances are nobody in the room, literally one or two people in the room, might know what a public adjuster is.
Mm-hmm.
But even if everybody in the room knew what a public adjuster is, the odds are nobody in that room has an insurance claim that they need help with that day. And the odds are most of them won't have one all year, that they won't have an insurance claim. So it's very tough. You have to count on them. You can't count on them to have a claim. You just have to hope that they know somebody that has a claim. And that makes it difficult. Other people go into that room and they can sell something that day to other people in the room, because there are people in the room that need whatever it is that you're selling, right? If you sell drinking containers,
right,
or if you sell the printing that goes on it, you can find somebody in that room that wants to advertise their business that day, and you can sell them something. As public adjusters, we just don't have that kind of service.
Yeah, and it's amazing, some of my clients, when I saw the insurance policy, and I was like, oh my God, like they pay, like it's relatively big for them, but it's really nothing covered. And I feel so bad, because I wish we can educate them more about it. And maybe actually I should think about it. Maybe we can do another podcast about it to educate people what kind of insurance they actually should get. So when something happens, they get paid, right?
Yes, but as you know, there's right now, there's not that much in the market that they can get that's going to cover everything. The
Yeah, that's
carriers are simply following suit with one another. They see one carrier limit water losses to $10,000 and they go, well, I should limit water losses to $10,000 too. And now you have multiple insurance companies limiting water claims to $10,000, which is a fraction of what the average water loss is going to cost. They've already eliminated sinkhole coverage. They've eliminated mold coverage or limited it to $10,000. They've drastically reduced the amount of additional living expenses that people can recover on. They introduced now depreciation guides within the policy. They're just making more and more restrictions and having larger caps so that even if you have good insurance, you're still coming out of pocket thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And, so we can educate them so that they won't be shocked when it happens to them. But unfortunately, you can't always help them get better insurance because a lot of times there isn't better insurance out there or insurance that covers everything. They don't have it anymore.
Yeah, for example, me, I live in a nice area, but it's only 700 square footage apartment, right? And when I was looking for insurance, it was only one company and they offered me insurance for 1,000 something per month. Obviously, for me, it's expensive and I don't even feel like this square footage worth that much money. Of course, I should get it. You know what I mean? I should be covered. But you see the difference? Like, this is a lot of money. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it only seems like it was just a few years ago when my home insurance, and I have 2,400 square feet in the house and the yard and the pool and the fence, and the insurance was only $3,000 or $4,000 a year. You're at $1,000 a month for covering 700 square feet. Yeah, that seems out of line.
Yeah, for sure. So what's one mistake you made early on that turned into a valuable lesson for you, Mark? Was there anything?
Yeah, I would say a big mistake that I made was in the beginning when I was looking to grow the company, right? I wanted more adjusters so that we could help more people. I wouldn't be thorough in selecting the adjusters that I would bring on.
Okay.
If somebody wanted to join the firm, I would let them join the firm rather than really vet them and maybe even do personality profile tests and really make sure that they were going to be a good fit for the company and that they were going to be serious about the job and do the work. I've had adjusters that I would bring them on to the firm, and after a year, they have handled no claims, none. Well, if they don't handle claims, they're not getting any money, but they had another occupation, and they were spending all their time with that. So I would just say, not being selective enough with the people that I brought on to the firm.
Yeah, I feel like it's also, like we all know, it's difficult to get clients. You know what I mean? So of course I'm new in this industry, and it's super difficult for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I see you out there all the time because you do a lot of posts on social media.
I try, yeah.
You're always going, you're always out there, you're always posting. So it's not from a lack of effort. With these people that I'm talking about, you never saw any of that. And they never followed up with me. Hey, Mark, I'm trying this, I'm trying that. It wasn't that. They just weren't doing anything. If somebody knocked on their door and said, help me with my claim, okay, maybe they would have taken them. But it's not going to happen because nobody knows that they're an adjuster because they're not out there like you telling everybody
Mm-hmm.
that they're an adjuster and what they're doing and what it means and how you can help and all of these things that you're doing out there.
Yeah. Mark, tell me one thing. When you started the business, I've started before as well, and it was very scary actually. What are um I guess the question is, were you afraid? What were the ups and downs about it? You know what I mean?
Sure, but
But
I was lucky in that I had 17 years of experience with a top national insurance company that trained us really well. I'm talking about in the 80s, and the training was top quality training. We didn't go into a classroom for 3 hours and they review us the exclusions and that was it. We went to class for 2 weeks from 8 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon, and we studied the policy every day, the policy for 2 weeks, and we understood what it all meant and how it was supposed to be applied. That doesn't happen anymore. So I had very good training, 17 years, very good experience all over the country, many states. Like I said, millions of claims that I either handled or supervised the handling of. And so with that kind of background, I really didn't have anything to fear because
great.
I knew the policy. I knew how to adjust a claim. I didn't know how to be a public adjuster or a business owner. So those were the scary things. Is how do I make my business work properly? How do I, try to maximize profit? What expenses are okay and what's too much? Little things like that, and how to deal with people. The adjusters that work for Gold Star are not employees; they're independent contractors. So I don't get to be. It's funny when you started, you said my boss, Mark, and I always want to say, no, I'm not your boss. I'm not. You're your boss. You're an independent contractor.
You're
the
right.
boss.
In that case, yeah, I guess.
But
I mean, you are my boss on one side, and you're not at the same time.
I always say,
my boss.
I own the firm. I'm on the firm. I'm an employee of the firm. You're not even an employee of the firm. You're an independent contractor. You're your own boss. But I understand that's how it seems, and that's the relationship. But having to deal with adjusters that weren't even employees, and it's very difficult. Everyone's got a different personality. Everybody needs to be spoken to a different way. Everybody has different needs and wants. Some people are focused on money. Some people are more focused on appreciation. All of these different nuances with people. It's what business owners have to deal with the most.
Mark, what's the tip? Can you give me the tip how to actually manage people? Because I also manage at my other job. I have to work with people all the time as well, besides public adjusting. And you are so right. It's very difficult sometimes. And you're so right. They're so different. Sometimes I'm like, it's a very good experience, but how to do it,
Yeah, I would say you have to be a reasonable person. You have to be patient. You have to listen. Most people, even if they don't agree with you on something, if they know you're listening to them, you're hearing them out, but then you just explain what the procedure is or the process is, they'll understand that, even if they don't like it, but they appreciate that you honestly listen to them, give them the time, be patient with them, and not just say, because I said so. It's absolutely, the worst thing to tell somebody is because I said so.
This is a very great tip because I've learned that sometimes we get emotional, and that's usually happens when the other person is not listening to us. This is really, really good what you just said. How do you stay motivated and how do you keep your team inspired?
Well, I think I stay motivated because I worry about all of the people that work with me, and I don't want to let them down. That's a big motivator for me.
That's
Um,
great.
it's just I, part of my personality is I want to help people. I don't want to let people down. I don't want to fail. I don't like failure. This is why I don't like quitting anything. I'm gonna do whatever it is I have to do to succeed, and I'm very competitive, and not competitive in that I'm gonna step over somebody to make money for myself. I'm competitive in that I don't want to lose whatever that means. And for me, if an adjuster leaves my firm, which it happens to every firm, but I look at it as a loss and as a personal failure, and I don't like it. Even if it's not my fault, but I still look at it as a failure. I don't like to fail. I don't like to lose. I don't like to give up. I don't like to quit. All these things I don't like to do. So all those things make me try extra hard to keep that person, to retain that person, to do the right thing by that person. And that's another thing that I think helps is I'm not worried about the money. If I do the right thing, the money will follow. And
Absolutely.
never had like minimums. I know adjusters that if the claim isn't $50,000, they don't handle it. Others, if it's $100,000 less, they don't handle it. Others, $1 million, and if it's not $1 million, they don't want to handle the claim. So, but at $1 million, if they only handle 1, 2, 3 claims a year, they can be okay, right? But
Yeah.
that was never for me. I always said, when people say, well, what's the minimum? Do you want to come out and see the damage? No, I don't need to see anything. I don't need to know how much it is. If you have a valid claim, you're owed money from your insurance company, I'm going to help you. Later, I'll worry about, counting the money. And if it's nothing, it's nothing, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
okay. It can be goodwill if it's nothing.
Mhm.
But I don't worry about the money. I simply focus on doing the right thing and doing my best job, and the money will always come after that.
I respect you and admire you for that because, as we know, there are some adjusters and they just take any claim and just go for it. And a lot of times it can just bring a headache in the end to the client, as we already know that. And when you say I actually care about people, basically not about the money, that makes such a big difference.
It does, and it's important, and it shows. People can tell when you don't care
Absolutely.
about them, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they see it. So why do it?
Mhm.
You have to be genuine. You have to be authentic. All of these things help, and you have to do what suits your personality. So not everybody is built to be a public adjuster, just like not everybody is built to be a car salesman or a hairdresser or anything else. You need to do what suits your personality and what makes you happy. Because if you're not happy, you're not going to do a good job. And if you're not if you're not enjoying what you do, it's hard to be authentic at what you're doing.
What do you think actually about? I'm pretty sure this question, a lot of entrepreneurs, like real estate agents, also wondering about. What do you think about cold calling or door knocking? Is that like a good thing? Like it's profitable?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing if it suits your personality. Again,
Mhm.
my personality. And it's funny because it doesn't suit the personality of most of the adjusters that work at Gold Star.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's because they see me not do it, or because I tend to hire someone who has that same personality, but I don't see anything wrong with it, and it can be successful. Honestly, I wish I was a little more aggressive about cold calling or door knocking. Instead, I go to networking events and I meet people, and then it's similar, but at least we're there for the same reason, and they expect me to solicit them or to tell them about my business, to ask if they know somebody who could use my service, something like that. So it's not completely out of the blue, but I was never personally comfortable knocking on a stranger's door and saying, "Hi, this is what." Sometimes, every once in a while, you see a big tarp on their roof, or you see shingles, that are off their roof after a storm. You go up and knock on the door, say, "I don't know if someone's already been out, but I noticed your roof is damaged. Do you have a claim? Do you need help? Here's my card if you ever need some help, or do you just want to tell me about it?" And a lot of times, if you just not ask for the business, but just say, "You want to talk to me about what's going on with the claim?" Because I know it can be stressful, but it's not stressful to me because this is my job. And again, be willing to listen to them tell you their story about the damage or the claim or whatever. And whether you get the business or not, you can talk to them. And again, now you leave, they have your card, and they may not hire you for this event, but maybe for another event they do, or at least they come away with a good feeling about you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's certain personalities actually who can do it, not everyone for sure. Let's talk a little bit about insurance. I forgot the question the question I wanted to ask you. Can you explain to people that don't know what is the difference between public adjusters like us, me and you, and the insurance adjuster?
Okay, it's pretty simple. And there are three kinds of adjusters altogether, right? There are public adjusters like us that we only work on behalf of policyholders or claimants, and we represent them to the insurance company, and we can negotiate on their behalf. And we help them document the claim and submit the claim, negotiate the claim, and all those things. And then there are staff adjusters that are employees of the insurance company, and they can only represent the insurance company that they work for, that they're an employee of. And then you have what's called independent adjusters. And I'm not sure why they call it independent. They call it independent because they can work for multiple insurance companies rather than being an employee of just one insurance company. But independent adjusters also only work on behalf of insurance companies. They do not work on behalf of the policyholder. And so it's always a matter of perspective and loyalty, and there are statutory requirements and obligations that bind the staff adjuster and the independent adjuster to the insurance company versus our obligations that are to the policyholder.
In your opinion, why is it important to hire a public adjuster instead of just going directly through the insurance company?
Well, we always say we think about it this way. If you are going through a bad divorce, are you going to let your spouse's attorney represent both of you? Or are you going to hire your own attorney to represent your interests against your spouse?
Very good example. I love it.
The answer is obvious. You're not going to use the other person's attorney.
For sure.
And similar with real estate, if you're going to buy a house, you're allowed to use the seller's realtor to help you with that process. But if you hired your own realtor to represent you, you're going to get better representation because the statutory requirements and obligations and the duties are different for those two types of realtors.
Yeah, for sure. What are some common mistakes people do when filing claims? And what are the top 3 things homeowners should do immediately after property damage? What do you think?
Let's see. Top 3 things that they should do after a claim is they should document the damages. Everybody knows the phone, so you got pictures and videos that you can take right away. So document the damage is number 1. I would say number 2 is to call a public insurance adjuster and ask for assistance in handling the claim, or even deciding whether a claim should be submitted. And then, to me, number 3 is to file the insurance claim. If the public adjuster says that it's feasible to file the claim, because there are some times when people have something happen to them at their house, and maybe it's not covered by insurance, or it's not covered by their policy, or it's covered, but their deductible is so high it's not worth putting in a claim. So I recommend, don't put in an insurance claim. Don't have this claim on your record. Don't have an adjuster come out to your home where they can do some re-underwriting and maybe cause you to be non-renewed or your premiums to go up, because maybe you have a dog that they don't like, maybe you have a pool without a fence, maybe you have a trampoline in the backyard or something else, and now you're triggering something bad happening to you because you put in a claim that's not covered or is not even going to pay any money. So, obviously people think it's self-serving, but to suggest that people should contact a public adjuster before even calling their insurance company, but you want to know if it's a valid claim, and that's why you call the public adjuster. Doesn't mean you have to hire the public adjuster, but you should call one to make sure that the claim is valid and that it's worthwhile to put in. So those are the 3 things that I think everybody should do when they have damage. And then most common mistakes, of course, is just immediately calling the insurance company without ever considering whether or not the loss is covered or whether it's worth putting in.
I agree. That's a very good one.
And then another thing is they say the wrong thing to the insurance company when they submit the claim on their own, which is why we recommend you contact us, make sure that we think it's good to submit it, and then we would submit it on your behalf so that we don't say the wrong thing. People will call up and they'll say, I have a flood at my house. And the adjuster would, or not the adjuster yet, but the person at the insurance company would say, I'm sorry, flood is not covered. Thank you. Have a nice day. And they didn't mean flood the way the insurance company means flood. Or they might say, I've got mold in my house. And the insurance company would say, well, mold is not covered. And again, they didn't even have it tested. They don't know that it's mold. It could be some other kind of growth that's technically not mold. And behind what looks like it might be mold, it would be water damage. You're usually going to have water damage before you ever have mold damage. Well, the water damage should be covered even if the mold is not covered or if it's limited. But the person just says mold and they don't say, I have water damage. So
that's a good
very
point.
Simple mistakes.
And also, I've noticed, you actually mentioned that too, that a lot of them, they confuse flood and water damage. And as we know, flood is actually, that's a separate coverage. And a lot of people don't even get that. So yeah, that's very good point. Also, I get a lot of questions if the property owners, if they should fix things right away once they see the damage. What's your answer to that?
No, they should not fix things right away once they have the damage. They need to at least photograph the damage right away before they do anything. And if it's something that has to be done right away to mitigate the damage so that it doesn't get worse, well, they can do that. It should be a temporary something that stops, further damage from taking place. But they shouldn't just do all of the work. Some people do think, I have damage, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to send it to my insurance company, and they're going to reimburse me what I spent. And then they find out, no, that's not how it works. You do all of the work, and the insurance company comes out and they say, I don't see anything wrong. They say, well, that's because I fixed it all. Well,
Yeah.
now you weren't supposed to fix it all. We were supposed to investigate it. You stopped me from investigating it. And so therefore, I can't cover it. Even if it was covered, you messed up and you made it so that now I can't investigate the claim. If I can't investigate it, I can't cover it. And so nothing is owed. And do that. And unfortunately, it happens.
Yes. Can you also explain to people who is watching us, does insurance premium goes up every year? We know that sometimes claim can affect the premiums, but does it go up every year naturally? You know what I mean? Like,
it depends. Like right now, premiums in Florida, some premiums in Florida are actually going down.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
some are. Homeowners premiums are going down. But typically for homeowners policies, the premiums are not tied to your losses like they are with auto claims.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, your premiums are going up because your home value is going up, costs of construction and costs of repairs go up all the time. So typically your premiums go up every year, whether you have a claim or you don't have a claim. But a lot of times, even if you have a claim, and I was talking with somebody else about this earlier today, they felt, well, if I hired an attorney, well, now my premiums are really going to go up. It's just not true.
Mm-hmm.
Hiring a public adjuster or hiring an attorney or fighting for your rights on a claim, those things don't necessarily make your premiums go up. And even if they might make the premiums go up, it's usually worth it to fight for your rights on your insurance claim. My focus, if I had a claim, would not be how much are my premiums going to go up. If you don't want your premiums to go up, don't get insurance, just self-insure. That's the easiest way to ensure that your premiums don't increase, right? Is just don't buy insurance. But that doesn't make sense for people either. So focus so much about the premiums going up. Just worry about, how much am I getting paid on my claim? Am I getting paid the right amount? Is my claim being handled properly according to statutes? Those kind of things, more so than what if my premiums go up a little bit.
And the last question, Mark. Are there any red flags to look out for in insurance policies?
Oh, there's always red flags to look out for.
I want to hear them all.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we have that much time. But
Most important ones.
Yeah, some big ones are if your home isn't very new. So if your home is, I would say if it's more than 5 years old, you want to make sure you have ordinance and law coverage on your policy, right? You want to make sure
to people, because I'm pretty sure they don't know.
Yeah, so ordinance and law, there's a in almost every policy in Florida, at least, there's an exclusion in your policy that says we don't owe for any increase in costs of repair that are due to an ordinance and law that requires a code upgrade. So then now there's an endorsement that you can purchase. It's extra, but it would pay for those additional costs that take place when your home gets damaged and your home wasn't up to code, and now the code is different. And to bring your home up to code, it's going to cost extra money. So this endorsement pays for those additional costs that come up due to laws and ordinances and code increases and those kind of things. So it's good to have that on your policy. But if your home is brand new, well, it doesn't make sense to have that on your policy because it's up to code already. But if you bought a home that's 10, 15, 20 years old, 50-year-old home, you really need not only to have the ordinance and law coverage, but to get a higher percentage of coverage. So you could get 25%. Maybe on an older home, you should have 50% coverage, increased coverage for that. So that's a big one. Backup of sewer and drain endorsement is another one. Go ahead, you had.
Yeah, so the question about ordinance and law for our watchers, can you give me an example for, are you talking about like people who live in condominiums, I assume, or also about residential homes? Like, what can be an example? You're talking about maybe different roof, or what is it?
There are things that change with plumbing, with electric, with framing, with roofing. All of these things, the codes change periodically, right? They don't usually change every year. It's not usually very often, but there may be a code upgrade that says, well, now in Florida, you have to have hurricane clips on your roof trusses. There's new codes that call for additional nails to be placed in the sheathing or the deck of your roof. There's a lot of roof and envelope related codes on your garage doors that they're reinforced because it's been determined that if something on your building envelope goes quick in a hurricane, like a door or window, that really increases the amount of damage to your home. So if you had a very poor weak garage door, and that thing blew out really quick in the hurricane, well, it would usually then rip off the roof in that section of your home and do extensive damage that wouldn't have been done if you just had some simple additional bracing on the garage door. So they make the new code stronger than the old code so that you don't have those issues. And yes, it can be condominiums or residential homes or commercial structure.
Very useful advice, the first one.
Yeah, and I was going to say backup of sewer and drain is a big one.
Okay.
In most policies, again, because most policies, it has an exclusion for a backup of a sewer or drain. And this is something that happens normally. It happens during a hurricane or flooding situation, and it usually will affect more than just one person on the street, because a backup comes from somewhere that's off the property, off the premises, right? Usually city system. And if it happens to you, it's probably happening to everybody on your block, right? And so, of course, the insurance companies don't want to have to deal with something that's happening widespread like that to everybody. So they exclude that from the policy. Well, you can get an endorsement that puts it back into the policy so that you can get coverage for that. And a good tip is a lot of times insurance companies deny a claim for a backup, and it's not really a backup. The first clue that it's not a backup is because you're the only home on the block that had this happen. And usually what happens is there's a blockage in your drain line, and it might be inside the house, under the slab, maybe in your yard. but it's not in the city line. It's on your property. There's a blockage. And so when you have that happen, the water that normally goes out the drain, it's got nowhere to go. And so it comes back like a backup. But really what's happening is your pipe is filling up with water as you continue to shower and otherwise use drains until it then overflows inside your home.
And you said it gets denied if
Mhm.
really
It gets denied frequently as a backup of your sewer and drain. If you don't have the endorsement, obviously they'll deny it.
Okay.
But you don't need that endorsement for that to be covered because it's not a backup. It's what's called a fill up or just an overflow, but it's not a backup. So it should be covered even without that endorsement, but most people just don't know this. And then it's always good to have the backup anyway. But remember, the backup endorsement is usually only going to be a $10,000 limit. And this fill-up event or overflow event may cause $30,000, $40,000 in damage.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Hey, good thing you have this backup endorsement. You get $10,000. Well, no, you get the full $40,000, $50,000 because it's not a good one.
That's wow. That's interesting.
Replacement cost coverage is an easy one. You should look to make sure that you have replacement cost coverage on your building and on your contents. But sometimes, it's less. The policy is less if you don't have those coverages. And a lot of people are just looking to their agent, what can I do to make the policy premiums cheaper? Well, one thing you can do is your policy is actual cash value, or that you don't have replacement costs on contents.
You get what you paid for, right?
Yeah. Don't always look for the cheapest policy.
Yeah, exactly. We should make one more podcast about it.
Right.
Maybe a little more details about insurance policies one day,
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much. It was my first podcast, and I so appreciate you being on it and for support. And I'm so glad to work with you. And today we also learned a lot of interesting tips about insurances. And just, we got to know Mark, how he started his public adjusting firm. Thank you again, Mark. I really appreciate. And if you guys liked it, follow me, like, and comment below. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Appreciate it.